Hello and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Inflation has not slowed yet, leaving Americans to wonder where the economy is headed. President Biden today, when asked about a possibility of a recession, gave a positive outlook on the economy. While some economists agree, others are not so optimistic. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
As Americans continue to pay more for gas and goods, a lingering question hangs overhead. How much longer will you have to cope with higher prices? Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst at Bankrate, says probably a while longer.
It's an open question whether inflation is or has peaked. There are some signs pointing to that. Given the fact that the outlook remains for inflation to remain persistently high for some time to come, we would look for those households to continue to struggle.
Here's President Biden today acknowledging that the U.S. economy is facing obstacles and offering a positive outlook.
We have problems that the rest of the world has, but less consequential than the rest of the world has them because of our internal growth and strength.
The president downplayed the possibility of an economic recession, saying that a recession is not inevitable. But what are economists saying? Do you see signs that we're headed toward a recession right now?
I think it's fair to say the risks of a recession have risen in recent months, but when you have the job market continuing as strong as it is and has been, we don't see a horizon immediate. We do not see a recession immediately on the horizon.
And one economist from Hillsdale College tells me when assessing the economy now, we should keep in mind the unprecedented challenges we've faced over the past few years.
The pandemic response that locked down the economy and the subsequent supply chain disruptions, those things are not normal. Those aren't normally figured into your standard economic models, so they have to be taken into account also. And similarly, shutting down energy production affects every sector of the economy, basically. At present, there are no alternatives that could replace the fossil fuels that we use. So you're going to see prices going up, you're going to see output going down. That's the formula for a recession.
While many conservatives have urged the Biden administration to encourage more domestic energy production, President Biden says he has another action plan.
But in the meantime, it seems to me the best thing I can do, in addition to try to get the Middle Eastern countries, including OPEC, to raise their production of oil.
Today, the International Monetary Fund said they do not expect a recession for the world's major economies, but it's not out of the question, and the immediate concern globally is inflation.
So at this point, I think it is very important for central bankers around the world to deal with inflation as a clear and present danger.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has hiked interest rates to slow inflation, which is a major tool for tackling the issue. But some are concerned that government policies aren't heading in the right direction.
There's been a call for increased taxation, including corporate taxes. These will have a negative effect on business. There's been a call for so-called windfall profit taxes on oil and gas production. Because those prices have gone up. And these things all have a depressing effect on output. A depressing effect on output at this time is an undesirable thing.
Both economists tell me the best way for Americans to prepare for an uncertain economic outlook is to save money, invest in assets to maintain the value of your dollar, and quickly pay off debt to avoid the impact of the higher interest rates. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
Today would have been the day Title 42 was rolled back, had a federal judge not issued a preliminary injunction keeping it in place. The Justice Department under President Biden says they will be appealing the ruling. Meantime, Republicans say that this is the last line of defense at the moment for anything that remotely resembles border security. One of them is Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. We're happy to have him on. Congressman Chip Roy, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure as always.
Congressman, today would have been the expiration of Title 42 had a federal judge not gotten involved to block the termination. How long do you expect this to last, and is this a fundamental solution from your perspective to solving the border?
Well, first of all, the thing that the American people need to understand is, regardless of Title 42, the border is wide open and disastrous, right? We have 8,000 people a day coming across the border. Think about that we know of, right? Those are the ones being apprehended. Then we have another 2,000 a day who are basically known gotaways. That is an enormous number of people. We've had 1,300 pounds of fentanyl that were apprehended or seized in April, which is enough to kill well more than the population of Texas and, frankly, a whole lot of Americans. So this is the state of our border, even with Title 42 being enforced. Now, Title 42 is essentially a Band-Aid. It was a recognition that during the pandemic, we shouldn't be allowing people to just come in mass numbers and be able to have some level of enforcement that empowers DHS to turn away at the border rather than going through the full asylum process. But what the reality is if they get rid of Title 42, then there are just no barriers whatsoever. Then the numbers flood the zone, and then we do nothing but process people and release them. That's the problem. But I'm glad to see a judge hold the line and try to enforce the law and require the Biden administration to go through all of the normal procedures, which they didn't do. But again, that's a temporary hold. We have to do more. Congress should act to mandate that we're turning people away at the border. And I've introduced legislation to require DHS to turn people away at the border if they cannot certify that we are detaining everybody that comes across for the full time of their adjudication until they reach a final adjudication of any asylum claim. Because the last point is, we all know the vast majority of the asylum claims are not based in credible fear of persecution, which our law requires, but rather most people are coming here seeking jobs and opportunity, which I say to them, God bless them. But I say to DHS and Secretary Mayorkas, you're not enforcing the law, and you're causing Americans and migrants to be endangered because of it.
Congressman, we're now getting reports that Biden's DOJ will appeal this ruling. What do you make of that? And does that at the very least signal that the Biden administration is acknowledging that we've entered into the endemic phase of the pandemic?
Well, they're challenging it because they want to make sure that they can allow anybody into the United States regardless of consequence, right? They don't want to have Title 42 enforcement. That's clear from Secretary Mayorkas. That's clear from this AG. I mean, look, the Attorney General just issued a ruling that basically said you can continue to claim asylum even if you come in having knowingly committed. We know that you committed a violent crime. You can still come in and claim asylum because of, quote, your mental state. That's the kind of stuff that this administration is doing to the American people. They're making a mockery of our immigration laws. I don't know what it says about the pandemic, what it says about COVID, because frankly, it's not about COVID to them. For them, it's all about what can we do to minimize the enforcement at the border and continue to flood the zone and overwhelm Border Patrol and then have large numbers of people come into the United States.
Congressman, President Biden indicated that he's done working with Republicans. I guess, first of all, was there ever an attempt to reach across the aisle? And what do you think are the politics behind his statement?
Well, I'm not sure what the president means by work with Republicans. This is really a partisan issue, to be clear, but he's not working with anybody. All right, we've had a discharge petition on the floor of the House of Representatives to require that Title 42 be enforced for over a year. Not one Democrat has signed that discharge petition, not one. So there is no bipartisanship currently in the Washington, D.C. decision-making process for doing what we're supposed to do to enforce the laws of the United States. It doesn't exist. The current administration is purposely ignoring the laws of the United States, failing to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. The secretary knows it. The secretary is doing it on purpose. And the secretary, therefore, should be impeached for failing to do his job and failing to adhere to his oath to defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States. The president is perfectly fine allowing the secretary to do that. And frankly, the president is just as guilty as the secretary in terms of what he's allowing to happen. So, listening to the president say something about he's done working with Republicans. Well, I mean, to that I say, Mr. President, you actually have to come down and believe in the Constitution and the rule of law to want to work with us, because I'm not going to play half games with the president.
Congressman Chip Roy, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General Karl Racine is suing Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook's involvement with the Cambridge Analytica data privacy breach leading up to the 2016 presidential election. The suit says that Cambridge Analytica received millions of dollars from the Ted Cruz and Donald Trump 2016 presidential campaigns and then worked alongside Facebook to use harvested consumer data for campaign advertising. Racine is now blaming Zuckerberg for his role in selling Facebook user data to Cambridge Analytica, including the data for almost half of all D.C. residents. Racine said in a news release that he wants to send a message that corporate leaders and CEOs will be held accountable for their actions. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.